Hi, and welcome back to Building Better Mentors. This is video 4, Supporting Teachers Through Challenges. In the last video, we discussed when you should give advice and when you should ask questions. We also explored how asking questions can help teachers think through their challenges and come up with their own solutions. But what happens when a teacher is facing a challenge that feels really overwhelming? They may be struggling with classroom management, maybe they're having a difficult time connecting with a particular parent, or maybe they're just feeling really overwhelmed with all of the responsibilities in their new role. As a mentor, it can be tempting to step in and try to fix the problem, but supporting a teacher through a challenge doesn't always mean solving the problem for them. Today, we're going to talk about how mentors can listen, help teachers break down challenges, identify possible solutions, and know when it's time to get additional support. When a teacher comes to you with a problem, the first thing you can do is listen. We have talked about listening in every video so far, but that's how important listening is. Before jumping into solutions, give the teacher an opportunity to explain what's happening from their perspective. You could say, "Tell me a little more about what's been happening. What part of this has been the most difficult for you? How is the situation affecting you?" Sometimes simply having someone to listen can help a teacher feel less overwhelmed. It also gives you a better understanding of the situation before you begin talking about possible solutions. When we are feeling overwhelmed, a problem can feel much bigger than it really is. A teacher may say, "Everything in my classroom is a mess and I just can't get anything under control." In this situation, instead of trying to address everything all at once, help the teacher break down the problem into smaller pieces. To do that, you can ask questions like, "What is the most challenging for you right now? When does this happen most often? Is there something that we can focus on first?" By breaking a large problem into smaller pieces, it can make it feel much more manageable. And it can also help you identify the first thing you can focus on. Another important part of supporting a teacher through a challenge is helping them focus on the things they can control. There may be circumstances that a teacher can't change. They can't control a child's behavior, how a parent responds, or how quickly a child develops a new skill. But they can think about how they respond, what strategies they use, how they communicate, and what support they ask for. A mentor might ask, "What part of this situation do you feel like you have control over?" Or, "What is something you could try differently?" Now, that doesn't mean we're going to ignore the things that are outside of the teacher's control. You're just helping the teacher identify where they have an opportunity to take action. Once you've helped the teacher understand the challenge, you can begin exploring possible solutions. This is a great opportunity to use the reflective and solution-focused questions that we talked about in our last video. You might ask, "What have you tried already? What else could you try? Have you seen another teacher handle something similar? What do you think would work best for your classroom?" You can also share your own experiences. You might say, "I've dealt with something similar before. Would you like to hear what worked for me?" If the teacher says yes, then share your strategy and give them an opportunity to decide whether it makes sense for their situation. Remember, you're a resource, not the solution. Your job isn't to take over the problem. Your job is to help the teacher develop the confidence and skills to work through it. Sometimes the biggest challenge isn't a particular classroom problem. Sometimes the teacher is simply overwhelmed. They may feel like they're not doing a very good job, they're falling behind, or they can't keep up with everything that's expected of them. In these moments, the most helpful thing may not be another strategy or another piece of advice. Start by acknowledging what they're experiencing. You could say, "It sounds like you've been dealing with a lot," or, "I can see why this has been frustrating." Then ask, "What would be most helpful to you right now?" Sometimes they might want help solving a problem. Sometimes they may just need someone to listen. And sometimes they may need additional support from their supervisor or another professional. An important part of being a mentor is knowing when a situation is beyond your role. Mentors don't have to handle every problem on their own. There may be situations involving safety, family concerns, or workplace conflicts that need to be addressed by a director or supervisor. If you're unsure whether something falls within your role as a mentor, it's better to ask for help than to try to handle it on your own. And remember, in the first video, we talked about how mentoring and supervision are different roles. A mentor can provide support, encouragement, and guidance, but they should not take on responsibilities that belong to a supervisor or an administrator. Needing to ask for help is not a failure as a mentor. It's part of being a good mentor. There is another thing to keep in mind when supporting a teacher through a challenge. We want to help them without taking away the opportunity for professional growth. If a teacher comes to you with a problem, it can be tempting to say, "I'll talk to the parent, I'll show you how to do it, I'll handle it for you." And sometimes those things may be necessary, but whenever possible, you want to support the teacher while still allowing them to be involved in solving the problem. Instead of saying, "I'll talk to the parent for you," you can say, "Would it help if we practiced what you want to say to the parent together?" Instead of saying, "I'll show you what to do," and taking over the classroom, you might say, "Would you like me to observe the situation with you and then talk about what we notice?" The goal is to provide support without creating dependence. Now let's look at a real-life example. Imagine a teacher comes to you and says, "I can't handle this class anymore, and I feel like I'm a terrible teacher." You ask her to tell you more about what is challenging for her, and she says, "The children just don't listen, and transitions are so difficult." Your first thought might be to give her a list of strategies that have worked well for you, but instead, you want to acknowledge her feelings and help her get more specific about what is happening. This is how the rest of the conversation could go. You can ask, "What is the most difficult transition?" And she says, "Coming in from being out on the playground." Now you have something specific to focus on. You ask, "What strategies have you tried so far?" And she says, "I tell them that it's time to clean up and go inside, but they keep on playing." So then you could ask, "What else do you want to try?" And at this point, the teacher might come up with an idea for something new to try, or maybe you have another strategy that you could share with her. And together you can choose the strategy you want to try next. And then at that point, you can make a plan to follow up. You can say, "Let's try this for the next few days, and I'll check in with you at the end of the week so we can talk about what you noticed." And now the mentoring becomes a cycle. It starts with identifying a challenge, then explore the situation, consider options, and try a strategy. Then you can reflect on what happened. And based on how the first strategy went, they may want to try another strategy and go through the cycle again. This cycle can help teachers become more confident in handling challenges on their own. This week's challenge is called Support, Don't Solve. The next time a teacher comes to you with a problem, I want you to resist the urge to immediately fix it. Instead, start with 3 steps. First, you're going to listen to them, then you're going to ask questions, and then help them identify one possible next step. After the conversation, you can take a few minutes to reflect. Ask yourself, did I give the teacher enough opportunity to talk? Did I jump into a solution too quickly? Did the teacher help identify the solution? What could I do differently next time? Supporting a teacher through a challenge doesn't mean having the perfect answer or fixing every problem. Sometimes the most valuable thing a mentor can do is help a teacher slow down, make sense of what's happening, and identify a manageable next step. By listening, asking questions, sharing our experiences, and knowing when to seek additional support, we can help teachers build the confidence to handle challenges for themselves. In our next video, we'll focus on another important part of mentoring, giving feedback that helps teachers grow. We'll talk about how to make feedback specific, constructive, and supportive, and how to have conversations about areas where a teacher may need to improve while still maintaining a trusting relationship. I'll see you there.